tip.
Good afternoon. It is February 24th, 2025. You're listening to a little of column A, little of column B, hosted by Will Lemonos and co-hosted by Zach Bishop. How are you doing today, buddy?
What is going on, Will? What a weekend. I was in New York City. I was at the most famous arena. Duke makes the trip up, Cameron North, as a lot of people have been calling it. And it was an absolute murder that happened. I didn't know exactly what to expect. I knew that we were going to be a decent favorite going in, but you're playing on a neutral site. Illinois has been ranked previously in the year. I know they're dealing with a couple of injuries, and there was a sickness at some point. I don't know the level of sickness, but this game was not close. Wire-to-wire victory. It was the Duke record this year for points at the half. Ended up being the record for points for the final for the year. It was the worst loss in Illinois history. It was the biggest blowout win by Duke at MSG. That was our 60th time playing there. We're on an 8-game win streak while we're up there. I've been being told that like the Duke season, it's basically fake because the ACC is terrible. Does this turn things around even a little bit for you?
So I wrote down the rundown today, and I wrote ACC first. I said I'll let you do the Duke. I knew you went to the game. Illinois, solid team, all of that. The only other thing I wrote underneath the ACC was the next Duke game isn't until March 20th, where they can actually be eliminated because you don't play anyone else. This is it. So enjoy this win against Illinois, which you did as much as you can, and you're doing as much as you can against the opponents that are lined up. But yeah, man. I mean, I'm not saying these blowouts aren't fun to get some highlights in all of this, but you don't have a real game. Don't you want to have at least one close game or a challenge before the tournament? Because you might just have 4 or 5 blowouts left over from whatever is left over on the season. Is that what you want?
Well, we're gonna play in the ACC tournament. Right now, it's projected there's going to be 3 to 4 ACC teams. So we're going to play, some other tournament teams. Not before the 20th. I mean, you play who's in front of you, and earlier in the year, this looked like a much closer matchup. But this wasn't just a blowout. We won by 40 points. I mean, this is a team that's in another conference, and I just at a certain point, it's okay. The ACC is down, but it doesn't mean that everybody in that conference is terrible.
I was not saying that. Nope, Duke is a very good basketball team. There's no reason to talk about any of their upcoming games, and this is the only one. So if you got nothing else to say about this, I mean, this is the ACC moment right now. We're moving on. We're going to get to the important stuff. We could talk about Michigan State's schedule and who they've played the last couple of days because they're playing ranked teams every night. It's a completely different conference here. So what else we got for the ACC? Cooper Flagg should be playing more minutes. I mean, what are we doing running up the score for this damn thing? Is that the goal of it all now? Are we going to try to win by 50 every game?
I think we should try to win by as many points as possible. Yes, I think that should be the goal.
Yeah, I give you credit for actually looking at that way of all right, if we're going to get the schedule knock on us this whole year, we're going to win by 100. We're going to try to do this triple-digit thing every game. And I think that's just what's in your control is what you could do there. So I'm impressed by that, and it'll be interesting if that continues on. It's just, it's hard to think this is the ACC of today, though. This is just a very weird setup where there's not at least one sneaky Virginia-like team anymore. I mean, they're a complete disaster, but do you wish they had just one more? I mean, is Clemson it?
I mean, it has to be Clemson and Louisville. I mean, those are the two. They're right behind them in the ACC standings. And yeah, we're just gonna have to see. It hasn't been a surprise that the whole year the season has been down. It's very funny now. There's been the joke that a couple of announcers have got caught on saying, well, the SEC, they were at a really good winning percentage, in the non-conference, but once January 4th when the conference started, they're only 500. It's well, yeah, that's what happens when you're playing in the conference. One team loses and one team wins. It's a zero-sum game here, so that's 50%. That's 500. Where now Duke beats Illinois. Now the ACC has an above 500 record, since conference play started. Big Ten doesn't, Big 12 doesn't, SEC they can't even get above 500. So it's just nice fun joke. We'll see if any of the announcers get tricked by this one. I have to imagine it can't happen again. It's already happened more than once, and it got a lot of attention.
Well, let me ask you this: how many teams win in one game? Oh, just one of them. Okay, yeah, just
Every time.
Keep it count over here. Math is hard. All right, on to the better stuff. All right, let's get to the Michigan State schedule, who just beat Purdue, who's currently ranked 20, and they just beat Michigan, who's currently ranked 15th. Wednesday, Maryland. Sunday, Wisconsin. Ranked teams. Is there one of these teams that you are willing to give a little bit of love to? Because you were a little cold to a lot of these teams last week. Has anything changed your opinion?
Huge week for Michigan State. Last week when we did the matchups, within the week before, you had lost at home to Indiana. Now Indiana this week goes and beats Purdue, which I was pretty surprised about. But last week it's like, all right, well, you just lost right beforehand. So when you're comparing teams, like who didn't lose last week, and you guys were kind of towards the back end, so I got creative with my tiebreaker process, and that's how it worked. But now this week, I'm not saying totally different team, but you just mentioned it. You beat two ranked teams, very impressive. And coming up this week, like you mentioned, Maryland and Wisconsin. Maryland on the road, and then Wisconsin at home. Like you could continue to vault yourself up even higher. AP poll number 10, or excuse me, number 8. KenPom at 10. Moving up in the net. I was seeing for bracket matrix, which just like distills a whole bunch of the bracketologists, was looking at you as a 2 or a 3 seed. Are you starting to like get ideas here? Earlier in the year, I feel like you were just kind of like, we'll see, make the tournament. But now I think the expectations are getting ratcheted up. How are you feeling about this?
I'm nervous of the expectations. I'm with you, though, that this was the first week where the way we handled business against Purdue and Michigan, who Michigan I thought was the hottest team. I mean, maybe you could argue Maryland or Wisconsin is now, and maybe we are the hottest team in Michigan State. So, like, there's definitely some heaters in here. There's just a way we won against these teams that I'm kind of respecting in this conference that's pretty tight, as I just mentioned. So, like, I'm a little nervous with the expectation. There's an offensive weakness of this team that is just an easy target, and you're going to watch this game, and there will be moments of being like, what are they doing? And then somehow at the end of the game, we're within a possession or somehow up in some way, but it's a lot of fight of a team that has a glaring weakness on offense, but it seems to be working. It's hard for me to completely endorse all of this, but it's encouraging with those wins of the past week that I could finally see us actually making a Final Four is what this is boiling down to. So, yeah, I think
we'll get to it when we talk about the Johnnies, but your two teams have a very similar offensive profile where you're terrible at 3-point shooting. Like I'm looking at Michigan State right now on KenPom, 29.6. That's 348th in the country out of 360 plus. So you can't get much farther down. Now, what is good is that you are also in the same range for the percentage of threes you take. So it seems you're at least aware. We are not good at shooting threes, but it's amazing that even despite that, you're 23rd in the country in offensive efficiency. It's like you realize how good you have to be at all the other things when you're this bad at 3-point shooting, and there's got to be some sort of I don't even know what you call it, but it's Izzo and Pitino. Got to be two of like the most well-known but old coaches in this new. It's not even a new era anymore. Like 3-pointers been around for a while, but just like the way that it's working out. I don't really think it has necessarily to do with the coaches. I think they would both love to have some 3-point shooting, but like I said, I don't know exactly what the word is. It's a funny observation.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it's like a mind control when you're playing against them. It's like, wait, what are they doing? It's like they run this great offense, and then that guy shoots it. It's like, yeah, I
almost wonder if, and this I'm just trying to rationalize this. So this is like kind of crazy out there, but just when you're this bad at threes and you don't take very many, there's no like, you live by 3, then you die by 3. It's like, no. we're not taking very many. So if you make a couple, it's just like this awesome bonus. Where if Alabama goes into a game who shoots a lot of threes and they're expected to make a bunch, if they go cold, like they don't really have like a plan B. It's like, well, where you guys, maybe a guy gets open, and I'm just wondering because I think it was Indiana, and why other teams aren't doing this, or if you will start seeing this in the tournament where a lower seed just has to get a little more creative. It's just run the zone against you, pack the Virginia style, pack the paint, and force you, like almost more like the NBA style, that we saw, with Tony Allen, where it's like you are wide open, the Draymond Green treatment. Here you go ahead. Like we're gonna try to get into your head doing this. Is there a concern that like a zone could just absolutely derail your whole thing?
Maybe, but I think we could use up a lot of clock on possession, which is kind of what we're doing anyways. Like we're holding on to the ball. We take care of the ball. So it's in some ways it would just slow the game down, and I think that's what you don't want to do against us. If anything, I think you want to speed it up. You want to outscore us. You want to put pressure on us to have to take a three because we're down double digits and that we're never going to catch up. I think certain teams like Alabama, Kentucky would just light us up and we would have a hard time chasing that. Now, if they went cold, for sure. If they went zone and are having an off day and this is just an ugly game, I just like our odds of winning an ugly game. So, yeah, if you want to slow it down to all of us, maybe that'll work where we don't score anything. But we kind of don't score anything anyway. So that's just like you're opting to slow us down, and that's not going to help you either. I wouldn't be that worried about it. I don't know if the team will be able to actually run it effectively either. Maybe that's what we need is wide open threes, and because we're in man to man, we just don't get those the same way. Versus in zone, it's like, well, this is as open as you're going to get, and maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's why we're so bad at shooting.
Sometimes those wide open shots, sometimes that helps you. And like I said, if you're going into the game not expecting to really get many threes, if you get some, it's just like a nice bonus for the offense.
All right, I'm riding high on all of this, but like you said, we got big games coming up this week. If we blow both of these, are we just deflating all of this? Are we run this back again next week, Monday quarterback sort of thing, where it's like, they blew it this week, they're not that good anyways. Like, or are we at least convinced after this past week that there's something here?
I mean, if you lose both, I mean it's obviously not great. But I mean, if you split, I mean, I think you have to be happy with that. Right now, you're a game ahead of Michigan. Just beat Michigan, so you'd own the tiebreaker. And so even if you lost two, if Wisconsin and Maryland, obviously they would have won against you, but if they won their other games as well, then would be tied with them with just another week to go. So you still, even with two losses this week, you still have the opportunity to be the one seed in the Big Ten Conference. So I don't think there should be panic, but you would like to be tested and kind of continue this streak of, hey, like we're really good. Everybody look out.
We do kind of have one more last opportunity depending on what Michigan ends up being, but the last game of the season will be home versus currently ranked number 15 Michigan. So we'll get one more shot at them.
Mm-hmm.
Which this could either be a real heater here if we clean up all of these teams, beat Michigan twice. So in some ways, I think there is a little bit of pressure on having to win these two games because thinking that we're going to sweep Michigan is. I just don't like the odds of that. Of thinking that we're going to play a team in like a couple weeks here and that we're going to beat them again. They just saw us, so I don't know. We'll see. I'm a little nervous about that, and that we kind of got to win both of these games this week. And this 16 at Maryland is the more worried about that one. But we'll see. All right, on to the Big East. We mentioned the Johnnies. The pressure continues on. They are hot. They are currently number 7 in the nation. Good for them. And most importantly, and most podcast applause all the way around here, is they took care of business and beat UConn again. Is this the nail in the coffin for UConn? Is it over?
I think they're still on the bubble.
It's all right. It's not going to happen.
I think they're still on the favorable side of the bubble as well, and I think they'll get the benefit of the doubt.
I hope so. And then I can watch them lose in the first round. I have no fear. I'm calling it all out. But
I like it. I like the confidence.
We should talk about the Johnnies who are actually playing well, who, like I said, beat UConn and continue to just go on a heater right now. Is this an underrated Big East year? Maybe this is a Duke team in the Big East.
I don't know if I'd go that far. They for sure have won a lot of games. I don't think that they have any premier wins, the way that the teams at the absolute top do, but for where they are. And have you taken a look at their at their losses.
No,
All right,
I haven't looked
I'll go.
into it.
I'll go through it real quick. They only have 4 losses back in the olden days in one of the other tournaments. Double overtime loss to Baylor by 1, 3-point loss to Georgia, 1-point loss to Creighton, and then a 2-point loss to Villanova. They haven't lost a game by more than one possession. So obviously you don't want to lose games, but you're just not putting yourself into that situation, or even in the situations where you lost, like you right in the mix, to make it done. It's hard to pull that off. I think that the Big East is similar, where they're going to get a similar amount of teams as the ACC is going to get in. But I mentioned it last week. I just like the way that St. John's plays, and I think it's going to work in the tournament.
It'll be fun to get Patino back. You mentioned Michigan State having expectations. What's the ceiling for the Johnnies now? What do you think is going to be ultimately disappointing if we don't at least get somewhere?
Well, they're climbing up the AP, but they're at 7 right now. I think putting them as an Elite 8 team, like saying if they don't make the Elite 8, it's a failure of a season, I think is too I think that's too tall an order for them. I think that they're looking to get to the second week.
It'll be interesting what their seeding ends up being, and if they're properly ranked, or maybe they could be an underdog. They could be overrated as well, where they play someone to a similar level somehow and run into a little bit of trouble.
I mean, you have to remember, just the tournament happens so fast, where in the first week you go from 64 teams, basically you go from 64 teams down to 16. So you could be in the top 25 all year long, perform up to that level, but if you are number 18, that second weekend, like, you're done. So like we always look at the top 25 and top 25 wins, and it's a little kind of arbitrary. Of if you're not in the upper echelon, or you get tripped up somewhere along the way, like this is over for you. So that's where I think they want to make the Sweet 16. If they don't make the Sweet 16, it's a disappointment. But beyond that is all gravy, especially kind of a the first year kind of situation here.
All right, on to the SEC. I didn't really write a whole lot of topics. I'll give you which one you want to talk about: Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, or even Kentucky. Which one? Or you want to just go wild card and it's not even any of those?
The SEC is still really good. They're going to put. I think I saw a graphic earlier that was still 2 weeks to go. They had 9 teams that were a lock for the tournament. A lock. And the way the graphic good does it is, once you're a lock, you don't get unlocked. It's not, okay, we'll see what happens. It's like, no. They could lose the rest of their games and they're a lock to make it in. It's just crazy. Auburn's up to 14 quad 1 wins. I think the next closest is 9. They just continue to get wins. It got a little shaky against Arkansas, but they were still able to win. Alabama really took it to Kentucky. It's tough. It's a tough league,
No, that was one. I'd like to think that they were on a similar offensive level, but Kentucky just doesn't take care of the ball, and their defense. Like, you think Alabama's defense is bad? Kentucky's defense is terrible, and they're just running into these juggernauts of offense in the SEC, and it's not working out for them. We're going to talk about the Knicks later, but that's kind of a similar thing where it's like, sure, offense is great, and if they outscore the other team, you have to get a chance at winning. But what about the other end? And the other teams that have an offense that's really good too, you have no chance against them. So I thought this would be an encouraging win for Kentucky if they were able to kind of sneak one on against Alabama, who is obviously vulnerable on defense as well. But I didn't think they looked anywhere near on the same level, and that was a bad look for Kentucky that day. Anything else with the SEC?
We'll have a scout at the game at Kentucky this Saturday, going against Auburn. So we'll see. Do you think Auburn, with the season they're having, but it's also Kentucky. Kentucky, they've got the history, but new coach, I don't know, new era. If they were to beat Auburn in some sort of dramatic fashion, would they storm the court?
Oh, that'd be so upsetting. You know how I feel about all that. We don't need to rehash all of that. I would be upset by this, but it would be a big win for them, and in a lot of ways, for anyone to take Kentucky seriously, they're going to need something like that, and that would be the one win. Would be like, hey, look who we knocked off, and I'd feel a little bit differently about them what I think is going to happen is the complete opposite, man. I just, what have you seen out of Kentucky that's suddenly like, oh, but there's hope here? Like, I feel like the games, even when it's gone wrong, they've been like, well, offensively, we still did this. Like, they've had some good offensive games where they still get blown out. What's going to change this
I
week?
was actually, I was actually thinking the opposite. It was earlier in the week when they played Vanderbilt and beat Vanderbilt. Huge second half, but in the first half, and it just seems like they're coming into the same problems. And I was mentioning it to you, just their interior defense. It just, I don't know if it's because the guards aren't containing, but I think in the Cal years, Cal always had, or most years, had some sort of anchor to the defense. I mean, obviously the easiest one, Anthony Davis back there. So it's like, all right, even if you get past the guard, good luck kind of deal. But it seems like there could just be layup lines at times where, especially against a team like Auburn, Auburn's really good at offense. It's not just Broom. It's a whole bunch of them. So if you are just leaky and they're just getting past you, it's going to be a long day.
I do
But I
the
mean, Kentucky does have the the opportunity. They do shoot a lot of threes, almost the opposite of Michigan State. They make and take a lot of threes. So if you can get really hot at home, you get the crowd going. Anything can happen.
that would scare the hell out of me if I was Michigan State and ended up across the like that would just be it's just a bad matchup where it's like, hey, we're only good at this one thing and we're really bad at this one thing, and it's like, well, how is that going to balance out?
Yeah, and it's offense versus defense.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of defense, let's move on to the Big 12 here. Houston gets a big win against Iowa State. This is another one where I would have thought these teams felt a little bit closer coming into this game, but this looked like one team was on one level, another team was a step behind. Not a great showing from Iowa State. We've seen some bad losses for them this year too. I don't think there's really as much to talk about here other than Houston playing really well, and they got a Big 10, Big 12 battle coming up this week against Texas Tech.
Tonight.
The real storyline, though, is I crossed off Kansas weeks ago, and how good is that take looking right now? I feel like I started the momentum. I just sabotaged everything right here. It's all going exactly like I expected it. Kansas is falling.
That is fair. They have fallen out of the top 25. They had been. Do you know how long they were? How many weeks in a row they were in the top 25?
No, you would have won huge money on this. I would have guessed. I would have thought that they flirted around 25 and like fell to 26 for like a recent, like within the last couple of years. But apparently, it's been how long?
80 weeks in a row they were in the top 25. 80 weeks. That's so many weeks. Would you like to guess? I have the top 5 for current weeks. The top 5 for the current weeks in the top 25.
Like 80 weeks ago?
No. Currently, right now. So they were at 80. They fell out. Now the new top 5.
What do you mean? What?
So, what team do you think has been
who's
in the top 25?
Still in
and I have the top 5.
It's probably it's got to be Duke.
Duke is 5 with 40. They had trouble during the COVID year. I think they had a long streak. Maybe I don't know how many weeks it was, but probably similar to Kansas or longer back in the day.
Is it somebody sneaky like? Oh man, this is gonna be hard. This is like Houston.
Houston's number 1. Yeah, Houston's number 1. 102 weeks. Tennessee at 2 at 76. Purdue 3 at 55, and then I think this one would have been the one to trip me up. Marquette with 48.
Oh, sneaky! Yeah, I would not have guessed that. I wouldn't have guessed it was this long either.
It's a nice mix of conferences there.
Well, Kansas wasn't good last year. We made fun of them all of last year about that they were tanking at the end of the year, that they were going to make this major addition, and that everyone was going to be healthy next year. And here we are next year, and it's the same mess. They ran it all back. It didn't work last year. I don't know why they thought it was going to work this year. We're not calling for coaches' heads that are firing right now. There's not a lot of Bill Selfs out there, but is this concerning? Because I think this is the direction we're going in, where eventually right now we're going to say, well, what's gone wrong the last 2 years?
I think the bigger concern was last year, because I think it was right around this time last year where I think Self said in the interview that, or maybe it was after the season was over, but it was around this time that he had just kind of emotionally packed it up for the year and was just kind of thinking about this upcoming year. And another thing to note, on top of 80 weeks in the top 25, and now they're out, they were preseason number 1. So the expectation around the country is this team was going to be, fighting for a national championship. So this is the second time in the not too recent future that the preseason number 1 has fallen out of the top 25. And, UNC a couple of years ago, they didn't even make the tournament. I think Kansas is still pretty safe to make the tournament, but it's not nearly as a lock as it should be for a team that started the season at number 1.
One of the big games this week is Houston versus Texas Tech. What other big games should we be looking out for?
Okay, yeah, that one's tonight, so good chance people missed it. The big weekday this week, we mentioned it. It's on Wednesday. Michigan State at Maryland, followed up by Kentucky at Oklahoma, and then for Saturday, again mentioned it. Auburn at Kentucky at 1:00. Texas Tech at Kansas at 2:00. So that's an opportunity Kansas to get back on the right path. Missouri at Vanderbilt at 6. Arizona at Iowa State at 9, and then Michigan State again. Wisconsin coming to town on Sunday, so nice and spread out there.
Big games, a lot of decisions. It's
this was the last Saturday of February. These games on this upcoming Saturday. That's gonna be March. Everything's different in March.
Yeah. Now we'll talk about Duke in a couple of weeks. Enjoy your bye weeks. Don't expect to open up the podcast every week with this. Let's talk Fresno State.
How many points does Duke have to win by, or how badly do they have to lose that they're going to open it? Whether that's good or bad for me.
I don't think there's anything that could happen. I mean, really, look, I would love to make fun of them for a loss, but it's not like I'm going to suddenly second guess this team if they lose to anybody going forward from here. I've seen enough. I don't need to see any more. It would be nice to see just a battle here or there, and maybe if it's just to practice some close game stuff, But I don't think you're going to have that, and I think even if you do have that, you're going to get knocked for even having that too, even if that's what I think the team needs. So there's
definitely this week when we're going against Miami and Florida State, who both have lost their coaches this year.
Yeah. So I don't think there's really anything you can do because there's not a whole. I mean, what would change your opinion of this? If you lost the next 3 games in a row to all of these terrible teams, do you suddenly think this team has no chance of winning the tournament? Like, there's nothing that's going to change. This team's good.
I'd say if Coop got hurt.
Oh, well, we're already going to talk about the sad gambling story right now. There's plenty of NBA injuries that are just disasters. Yeah. I don't even want to wish that upon him or even discuss it as that's how you get back on the podcast. But it's all right. March 20th, bud. Well, you might even be March 21st. You might even get one more day. Who knows?
Well, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
Fresno State is in some heat. They got some problems. They're specifically gambling. I somehow don't know anything about this story. Please inform us on what's the latest.
So Fresno State, not really known as a basketball powerhouse, and this year, 5-23 on the season, one win, 16 losses in the Mountain West. So not a good year. And I think these guys are starting to think about other things and maybe, hey, how could I do this basketball thing and make some money? So not unlike what we've seen in the NBA, but Fresno State has had to suspend 2 of their top scorers, as well as a third player has been removed from the team for allegedly gambling on their own games that they played in, and focusing both on the under on points and the under on rebounds.
Always the under. Wouldn't you respect anybody who was like, no, I took the over?
I mean, then you're betting on yourself much more, but I think you're for sure able to control the under a lot easier.
Yeah, well, that's why it's like I want like a real. I wrote a real hustler,
a real tough guy.
I write a real tough guy who's this is the movies. I don't want these losers at the end of the line who's like, this is the only way my name's ever going to be in the headline is if I get caught. It would be almost funny though if somebody was just betting massive money on their overs. Like if we just hypothetically years ago it was like, why Kobe went for 81 that day? Like just he just tripled his money. Great odds. Something.
I suppose as a boxer, I think in UFC you're able to gamble on yourself.
Yeah, why not?
I think that's the case. I think that was always this talk that Floyd always bet on himself to make the payday even higher.
Well, not only did Floyd always win, Floyd always got paid. Big money, Floyd.
That is for sure. So not great news out of college. I've been spinning this a different way, I think, than other people who are looking at it going, "Oh, I don't think they're going to let college props happen." But just like with the NBA, the more people realize, just because you are going on a website and you are making bets and you are by yourself does not mean that you are not being monitored. Like, I think these guys think that they're going into into the convenience store and there's nobody around and you grab a couple of candy bars and no big deal. But nope, you are a player. I am sure that they've had classes. I'm sure they've been told multiple times you are not allowed to bet, and you are for sure not allowed to bet on your own sport, and even more sure you're not allowed to bet on your own games. And so I'm sure at the end of this investigation, all these guys are going to be off the team. I don't think they're going to be able to play for anybody else, just like what happened in the NBA. And I think it's just going to serve as a lesson to other people coming later that this is not the way to make a little extra money. It's work a little harder in the gym, work on that NIL, and you could probably get something close. But yeah, doing this, it is not going to work out for you. It is for sure going to get recognized, and just easiest thing to do is stay away from it.
Hey, shouldn't it just be a giant red flag of like, wait, it's that easy? It's like, oh, that's all we have to do?
It should be. I mean, but I feel like it's a lot of crime. Is like that's how you get roped in. It's like, oh, this seems too this is easy. I'm just gonna take this money, no problem, no repercussions.
Yeah, and then you're the first geniuses to think of this. Like, there hasn't been enough examples already. Like, how many more of these are we gonna have to go through? Or let me ask you this: I'm pretty confident in the policing of this. So that I just don't think you could get away with it. And I think over enough time, they'll groom through enough things that find the things that are suspicious. If not only like in the past, probably only current up to time of like really up to date of flagging certain things, especially like unders that are like just so miscellaneous that aren't like hot topics that aren't being talked about. There's like, why that? I think almost those are bets that are traps that are, like nobody's ever going to bet on this. And the one time it does, it's going to draw attention and they're going to investigate and they're going to get you.
I don't know if it was like, I don't know how these guys like eventually got caught, but I know for the NBA case, I imagine, like you said, like, well, how are they this stupid? But I think that there was some like, hey, we're pretty smart about this, and you start small and like, all right, yeah, we're getting away with this. Like, all right, no big deal. No one, no investigation, no nothing. But it was when you bet on like basically a bench warmers under, and the amount you bet was like the most bet cumulatively of like anybody's prop that night. That starts raising flags. You went for too much, and that's where I mean, there's already going to be limits, especially on college players. This isn't the Super Bowl. It's not like you could just bet $1 million on this. Like, not even because you're doing something shady. There's limits. They're just not going to allow it. So these guys are toast. I don't think we're ever gonna like never see this, because like you mentioned, it seems like easy money, and you're dealing with 18, 19-year-old kids, and they're gonna think that they're smarter because that's just the way it operates.
It's just, this isn't just stealing music. This is a way worse manipulation in my opinion. That it just has so many more receipts and it is there's nowhere to hide. You act like it's anonymous behind a computer, but it's like I don't think anybody's understanding like how many trackers are in all of this and how to just register an account. I mean, you know how it is. You go to a different state and they give you a hard time. It's
got to be one of the most regulated things going on, as well as the way that they keep making money is because they're doing all the math in the background. They're looking at like a team of analysts that are looking at this, figuring out how can we squeeze more dollars out of these gamblers? Like, what do we have to do? How can we move the edges? What sells? What doesn't? How can they get better at setting the lines in the future? They're reviewing all of this. So yeah, these anomalies, they're for sure going to pop up. And again, trying to spin a bad thing into a good thing. In the past, this would have been, the black market. This would have, been swept under the rug most likely. Where now this is on Front Street. And now you have legitimate data scientists that are looking at this going, this doesn't look right. We're going to look into it. And if you're caught, doing this, you're going to be in trouble. It's unfair to the game.
Yeah. They
as well as your teammates. As well as your teammates. Imagine you're going into a game and you're not having, too much success, but you realize, your over under was 12, and now you're at 10, so you're just not shooting the rest of the game.
Oh man, I I can't even imagine coaches referencing any of this. Do you think they know? Like, are they talking about this? Like, I feel
Oh,
like
big time.
when I was growing up, like there'd be like I'd almost call it like dad challenges of like, hey, you got to get like 5 free throws a day. It's like nobody else was like tracking this, and it was just between us, and it was like, well, go get this carrot. Like it's just a target, like a little like mini
Hmm.
game within the game. Do you think there are coaches that are talking about like, hey, you're expected for 10.5 tonight? Do you think you can get 12? Like that's what they think of you. Like, is this motivating or is this like
I don't.
too much of a
I
chase?
I think they're trying to stay away from it. Just there's too much at stake, and I don't think it really does them much good to think about that.
What if they're like, God damn, they know. Like I'm in Utah tonight, or I'm in Denver on the road. Like they know.
I mean, it for sure has to be weird. As you know, you're a college freshman. You're coming in, and you're able to look up exactly what the market thinks that you will do for points, rebounds, and assists. Yeah, that's gonna be super weird. Not even just, hey, how is the team gonna do? Like you specifically, this is what they have you lined up for. It's got to be super weird.
Yeah, and then the amount of money being bet on it was like, oh man, there's a lot riding here. All right, no,
Yeah, you're looking at it going, hey, it opened at 14, and now it's down to 9. Like what? Do they know that I've had a cold? Like, what is happening here? How do people know this?
oh man, who knows? And then the other thing is you can put as much logic, rational behind any sort of bet. It's not guaranteed to happen. That there's a reason it's gambling. This is not nothing's a lock. Anything can happen.
That's why I think the coaches aren't talking about or saying what you're talking about. I think they are talking to them about do not gamble. I think that's where it starts and where it ends.
I don't know. Maybe these are just future contracts. It's like, hey, you got to hit the over today. This is how we're paying your contract. This is how we generate your salary. Is where you're literally gambling it on you.
I think that would be a big scandal, but oh boy.
You don't see there could be a league like this. No, like, I did this could be the ACC. This is how we add some energy to this.
I don't think we're quite there yet. I think we got into the gambling very quickly, but I don't think we're getting to that just quite yet.
All right, let's move on to a little NBA. It's February for the NBA. The All-Star break is over. We have some good news to talk about, and we do have some not so fun news to talk about. Let's start with the not so fun news in that Victor Wembanyama is going to be out for the regular season. Adding on to that, it's also looking like Greg Popovich, who has already been out for several weeks, is not going to be returning this year. I don't see a reason for him to return, so it seems justified to make that announcement, but not something as a San Antonio Spurs fan you would want to be hearing, that basically your two most important factors over the next couple of years are not going to be coming back this year and are currently not healthy with kind of some undisclosed injuries that are could be some major problems here. How big of a deal is this for San Antonio, like with Wemby?
It's not fun. Definitely came out of nowhere, just coming out of the All-Star break where he was just he was just playing, in the skills competition, was playing in the game, and then they find out, blood clot, which compared to some of the other injuries, just like, oh well, that's not, twisted ankle. It's not something you can see, or it's not something that a lot of people have gone through, and so it's more of what could possibly happen, and yeah, it's really unfortunate for Wemby. I mean, he was in the driver's seat to be Defensive Player of the Year. He's not going to play enough games. He's not going to get it. It means he's not going to be on one of the All NBA teams. I would think he would have been in the mix if you're Defensive Player of the Year, and so it just kind of some of those accolades at the end of the career that are going to rack up. It's not like he's not going to have a good career, but just also makes you nervous of, this was later in his career, but happened to Chris Bosh, and then he was just done. It was like, oh, well, they're just going to, like, doctors are just going to take care of this, and then he's going to come back. He'll be fine, right? Like, right? And they said everything they're saying is that, no, this is different, but I just, I don't understand that. I'm not a doctor, but yeah, it was definitely some disappointing news last week where, we're past the trade deadline. You're not really expecting any sort of, old Woj bombs. We don't really have a good word for what the Shams ones are. But, when you see that of, oh, that's not good.
It's a loss for the league. There's definitely a trickle down effect from all of this where draft pick situation changes drastically, where I don't know what they're going to be chasing this year, or even what this team will be capable without him. Like this is not a great team with him. This is a terrible team without him.
That was the thing too. Is they were right on the fringe of being in a play-in game, and depending on what team you are, is whether being in the play-in is a good thing or being in the play-in is kind of embarrassing. But I think for a young Spurs team, it would have been fun, and win or go home kind of situation. And then all of a sudden you got Wemby out there, like could he make a difference? On the national stage, and just now, no more opportunity. I I think this is a situation where it's not even we're going to try to tank. It's they could try their best and they're just going to kind of sink.
One of the side effects of all this is that Jaren Jackson Jr. of Memphis is not only the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year, but that will also qualify him for the Supermax with the 5-year bonus that he
I did not realize that.
wouldn't have qualified for had he not won. So that is. I mean, look, I'm not saying he just won the award. We still have some games to play. God forbid he gets injured. But right now, he's certainly in the driver's seat. There are other players that I'm sure could catch up into this sort of defensive race all of a sudden. But yeah, that is an interesting thing going forward for Memphis, where they're going to have to make some decisions on now how much he's going to cost, and plus whatever Jaw's future is as well. All direct conflict of Wemby being out the rest of the year, because
Interesting.
I think if Wemby was going to play the rest of the year, I don't see any way he wasn't going to win Defensive Player of the Year. And Jared's having a great year too. That is not like disrespecting of an undeserving thing. It's just that Wemby just
He was
out
like
there.
minus 2,500. It was basically a lock. I think it was Fanatics just paid people out that said, "Hey, he was, in the driver's seat to win this. This was just, an unfortunate incident. They don't have to do that." I thought it was a good move by them. It's good publicity.
Yeah, well, not fun news over there. But let's get into some of the good news and some little personal joy yesterday with these Celtics versus the Knicks. It was a game of runs. I don't know if you'll view it that way, but there was a little back and forth. It never really got as close as anybody wanted, but it wasn't like we blew them out by 20 and then won by 40. This was 20 and then it was 10. This was 22 or 21 at half, and then it was 9. And then it was 20 again. So I think there's a little bit more back and forth in this game than anyone wants to talk about, but the Knicks fans seem to want to forget this game and Celtics fans just want to pile on. So I'll let you pile on a little bit. How fun was last night?
Yesterday afternoon, it's a great way to start an afternoon, especially after Saturday night blowout. And you could say this was back and forth. This wasn't back and forth. Celtics were in the driver's seat this entire time. Knicks for sure play well in the third quarter, got it all the way down to 4. Then fourth quarter, got our acts back together. The 13 points even makes it look closer than it was. It was 20 with minutes to go, and they kind of got a little bit hot at the end. The Knicks went out and got Karl-Anthony Towns specifically, maybe not him specifically, but between him and Bridges to combat us. And then they have Cat playing drop coverage, and Tatum is the main beneficiary, but it's really Porzingis, White we're like really good at threes. It's like our whole thing. We love to take threes. We're really good at shooting them. So when you play drop coverage, now we have wide open threes. And Cat played a little bit better in the third, but the Knicks don't scare me. You seemed a little more concerned about him last year. Are you concerned about him this year?
This game we shouldn't just put everything into this one game, because Karl-Anthony Towns has been really good this year. It doesn't kill me to say that. I have no problem admitting it. He's been shooting threes like crazy and at a really good percentage, and it's a hell of a weapon. But I'm hearing stats that the Celtics have the most success against the Knicks in the pick and roll, and more specifically, they have an incredible efficiency against Karl-Anthony Towns, and specifically in the drop, which is what he does. Like, we have that better success rate against him specifically and the Knicks specifically than any other team in the league. There's no other drop coverage of any other team that we don't score more on. It's always the Knicks. So this is a problem for the Knicks, and I think it's a little bit more concerning that they supposedly have this depth, but they don't play any of it. They play 6 guys. Like, Thibodeau's playing 48 minutes for everybody, and when it's not going well, there's no adjustments here. I just also think there has to be a boiling point within Thibodeau, a known defensive coach, who's just got to be boiling in the inside every time he watches Towns just blow a coverage. Like, do you think that that's something we need to start worrying about, where he's just like, I can't keep
I
losing like this?
I don't think it's a blown coverage because it's over and over again. It seems like this is like the defense we have to play, and it can be. You're going against the Celtics. We have a great team that was constructed, and when you have that great team, when you're going against them, you have to make some concessions. And so this is the glaring weakness. And so there are other styles that you could play, but I think Tibbs, and he knows what he's doing, thinks that this is the lesser of the evils. And I'm not even putting this just on last night or on yesterday afternoon. We've played them 3 times this year, and this was the closest game. And like I said, it was only 13 points at the end, but this was never a game that I was concerned about. We basically held them at arm's length for most of the game. They went on one run. Crowd woke up, really like, oh shoot, okay, yeah, all right, they're gonna fight a little bit, as well as okay, you're the Knicks. All right, well, little trouble with the Celtics. All the teams usually have a matchup that's not so good. The Knicks, I believe, are 0-7 against the Celtics, the Cavs, and the Thunder. So playing a little bit fun with math. I'm not looking at the other West teams, but
They
you gotta win sooner or later.
They did beat Denver twice. So,
that's right. Like I said, I'm playing a little fun with the math of only like doing the 2 Eastern teams and then only the 1 Western team. But I think my bigger concern for the Knicks is not just like the Celtics part of it with Cat and seeing like, hey, we think we got it under control here. We for sure were hunting him big time the first game. And I don't know. I have no idea why after he rolled his ankle or his knee down 21 or 24, comes back into the game for garbage time. That just seemed just like a really risky play. It's not that Cat has this playoff legend where he grows and once he gets to the playoffs, then you got to look out. It's very much the opposite. I mean, it might be different on the Knicks, but it's not gotta look out for Karl-Anthony Towns in the playoffs.
I do still think they have an incredible offense and that he's a threat that I wouldn't be excited to go up against in a playoff series. Now, I'm not scared of the Knicks, but I do think they still are very good at that one thing. They're just very predictably bad at everything else. This is a Kentucky-Alabama sort of situation here, where it's very one-sided. The balance that this team used to have, they don't have anymore. And I think that's what really irks Knicks fans even more, is that they were like some pride in the full team of it all last year. And this year it was like they sold out a little bit. But, they just need to stick to the strategy. This isn't going to be a defensive team. And the concerning part about it is I just don't see the future with Thibodeau, and I don't see how that benefits this team of basically having him play his weakness style. Like, do you see like over the next 5 years Thibodeau just suddenly becoming this excellent offensive coach? Like, it just seems like a mismatch.
I think it's a problem coming out of the All-Star game. I mean, for sure, both these games were on the road, but just getting beat down by the Cavs on Friday and then by the Celtics on Sunday. The only little silver lining is I hear from Knicks fans is Mitchell Robinson. He's coming back this week, and I think Mitchell Robinson is fine. Is better than not having Mitchell Robinson, but I put Robinson in the category similar to Time Lord, where when he's out there, it's nice, but it's not like he was this healthy individual before this, and this one thing kind of tripped him up. It's kind of one of these things that he's known for, is that he's kind of constantly injured.
All right, we're going to run out of time here because you got your curfew. Anything else of the NBA you want to get to? We got to get to the MLB and a little hockey.
Just real quick, the Embiid stuff is just getting sad. It used to be fun, and now it's just getting sad, where like the doctors are looking into like other options, and it seems like they can't find an option, and the Sixers are just sinking, and they're even more incentivized. Their first pick is protected 1 through 6. They're at 6 right now, so anything going forward, it seems like the Paul George thing is not working out. It's not there. And as much as I like to dunk on the Sixers, it's just like it's just sad.
Yeah, it's sad. It's not great. It's it's just sad. There's nothing else to talk about here. All right, it's not like anything new's happened. It just continues to be a major disappointment. All right, so breaking news between ESPN and MLB just happening this week where they decided they are going to split and that there is not going to be a TV contract for them going forward. This is 3 years before this deal was going to expire. It will hold on to this one remaining year, but after this, the MLB will be a free agent. There's a lot of stuff behind all of this story. Over the last couple of years, while they still had this contract with ESPN, they did do what some would consider some bargain deals with Apple TV Plus and Roku to have some exclusive games on those channels. I believe it was Friday night on Apple TV Plus over the last couple of years, and I don't know anyone who does that, who really watches all of this, but this is somewhat of a big deal. I don't know who's losing out of all this, but yet both sides seem to be walking away from this thinking that they are lucky that they are not in business together. Is there a side that you feel for? I mean, I got more details on both sides of this, whatever you want to go with. But are you team MLB or team ESPN?
Not really on either side. It's like, okay, these are both massive companies. They're both going to be fine. Which direction they're going in, I don't really feel bad either way. I think it is of note. I'm pretty sure this is the first time that someone has like turned down live TV rights, and for sure the NBA just signed a massive long-term deal. And just wondering, have we hit the top? There's always ebbs and flows, and just wondering for the live rights, is you're willing to pay so much, and then all of a sudden, I mean, not all of a sudden, you just kind of see, hey, we're not making like enough money on this. Like this is not worth it anymore. And just wondering if this is the signal, and we're going to see going forward less of these major deals, and they kind of plateau, and just what kind of happens and what that really means for the future of the leagues.
Just to like kind of quickly recap of what baseball, the kind of the fandom of baseball that it is that you watch your team. You don't just watch it's not like you can just turn it on Friday night and you don't care what two teams are playing. You don't just want to watch baseball. You want to watch your team, and that's what people watch. So that's why it doesn't really work, or at least I don't think it works currently right now, to say there's just a random game on ESPN that we're going to take away from the local networks and force you to have them on here, or it'll be blacked out in your local networks to force you to have it on here. And it may or may not be your team. And there's nobody just blindly just saying, I just want to watch baseball and I'm turning on ESPN for all that. So like, I understand. I understand that this isn't a great philosophy. Like, it'd almost be better if ESPN just had the rights similar to the Yes Network of like, we just have the Yankees. You want to watch the Yankees? It's on ESPN. And that's not how the deal works, but that's part of the problem of this really just not being a great program. The other thing is baseball is not a growing sport. And you know what else isn't growing? ESPN. ESPN's not a growing thing. They're not trend setting. There's nothing like suddenly we're on ESPN, like we made it now. They're in decline just as much. So like I understand both sides of this feeling like, well, why do we want to take our declining thing and put your declining thing on here? We're not going to grow it. We don't talk about it, which is some of the beef that baseball had. It was like, well, we talked about it more. You would show it more. We would get more viewers. And it's like, well, you don't think we tried that? You don't think ESPN's tried to do that over the last couple of years? Nobody's tuning in. So like, I get both sides of this. I'm curious of the future of what is going to replace ESPN and then what this will end up being on. But ultimately, the main blackout games are the worst broadcasts anyways. We're better off with our regular networks and just keeping it on over there. So that's my take from not a baseball fan. But I don't know.
You say that, but at least for the NBA, those local broadcasts, I mean, those regional networks, they're not able to keep the lights on. What was it, Bali? Like they went bankrupt. I'll push back on the baseball just being people only want to watch their own team. I don't know if it's that so much as baseball is basically every night in the in the summertime. I don't know if it's so much of you're just going to turn on whatever's on. Is, well, my team's playing, so I'm going to watch my team. And people only have a limited amount of time. So if you have the option, you're just going to watch your own team and not, a different team. And I think it's tough to be that fan that's watching all of the games. I mean, it's tough enough with basketball to watch every guy or every team. And that's 3-4 nights a week, where this is it's basically every night.
All right. Well, let's just say hypothetically there was a way to please both of these sides. Was there anything ESPN could have done to make baseball more popular so that it could have made ESPN more money?
No, you're not going to be football.
All right, yeah. So then, what? I mean, what are we doing here? We're looking like, oh, ESPN, you're this worldwide network in sports here. Why can't you grow this sport? It's like, well, the sport doesn't need to grow. The fans that are the fans are the fans. It doesn't need any more fans, and the fans that are there are happy. Just leave them alone, and that's fine. But this is also weird for ESPN to basically be saying that we're not going to carry any MLB games. Like they'll show highlights.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's going to be the odd. You're going to have to use other people's stuff, but I think it's been this way for a long time. ESPN isn't the sports center. This is where you go to get the highlights. You go on the internet, you get the highlights wherever the highlights are.
I get annoyed of watching ESPN not only because I think it's in worse quality in comparison to the other channels, but I hate when the game shrinks because they got to increase the bottom line. Like, are people still tuning into this channel needing the bottom line? Like, is there ever an era in my future of ESPN having no bottom line?
If there's any news that I need to know about, I can go find it. Any breaking news, I will be told about it, and any scores that I'm interested in, I can just go find them. I don't need it on the TV. I haven't needed that for a long time.
ESPN is going to do a straight to consumer. It's going to come this year, and I don't know what it'll package of it all, but you'll basically be able to pay $30 and get all of the ESPN channels. I don't know when it's coming, but it's coming at some point, and I assume when it was going to come, it was going to include MLB and all of that. I have no idea if this is better or worse. In some ways, I don't know who this package is for, but if you're MLB, in some ways, this could have put you out in more households on a cheaper package. But we'll see what that means. I mean, the ESPN's been saying they're going to do this for a long time now, and I don't know what the amount will be, the price tag of it, and what it'll even include. But that's coming, and I think this is some part of it. They're like, we could just save a whole lot of money of not paying for baseball that nobody's going to watch anyways. Do you have a favorite for MLB to go to? Is there a network you wish it was on?
Oh, like of all the streaming?
I mean, Peacock. What do we got? Fox. I mean, where do you want it to go? Amazon. Do you want YouTube TV?
I guess
to buy
Fox is still pretty much normal. I guess I'd pick one of the streaming services. I just like that. That's like easier.
All right. Lastly, I guess we'll wrap up MLB here. The Yankees have made a groundbreaking trade. Are we going to look at them differently?
What?
A groundbreaking rule change in the facial hair.
I was like, what trade? I did not hear about this. No, yeah. The surprise is the Yankees are going to allow well-groomed beards. Since the Steinbrenner days, long time, it's always been no facial hair. Your mustache has to be within certain limits. Sideburns at a certain length. It was well-known rule, and yeah, the Yankees have decided they're relaxing it. There's a lot of speculation on what free agent they're specifically going after. That said, hey, I'm only coming there if I can keep the beard, and so it's like, oh, we got to change the rule. But yeah, definitely did not see this coming in this kind of slow news time of the year.
We've aged past this sort of visual judgment of facial hair and the shaving is a cleaner and all that, right? We're past all of this. Like, I don't think this is going to make you look at the Yankees, or was making you look at the Yankees any differently. What, like, was it? Like, is this step in the wrong direction now? Now that the bearded men are out there? Like, it's not offensive anymore. I think there was a point in time where it was frowned upon and that was fine to have that, but we're past that era.
It wasn't something that I thought about all the time, but as a fan of the Yankees, it makes me think of how the Celtics. It wasn't until Red Auerbach died that they had cheerleaders. Where it's like everybody else in the league had cheerleaders. That was just part of it. But his whole thing is about the basketball. It's not about the other things. And part of this is just making me think of, while we were clean shaven, a lot of World Series. And you know what? Haven't had a lot of World Series victories recently. Did go to the World Series last year. And so there's just a little bit of, hey, we were setting the expectations. And so I, kind of have that. It feels like an old man take, but when you actually step back just from more, not baseball, not all of the history, and just, hey, this is a workplace, and you're exactly right. I have a beard, I have it at the office. It's not a big deal, but it's really not that long ago that, in a corporate setting, you would not have facial hair.
Don't worry, the Steinbrenner curse. I'm starting right now. The bearded curse. You're never gonna win as long as somebody's got that facial hair on that team. It's gonna be cursed.
You think so?
He's putting a spell on you right now.
What if it goes the other way?
All right, too much baseball talk. Yeah, that'd be awful if you just couldn't lose now. It was like, oh
Yeah,
man.
what if Aaron Judge grows like a Santa Claus beard and all of a sudden he like hits even more home runs?
It could be holding him back. There are sillier
What if it keeps
superstitions.
Stanton healthy? Maybe that's what he needs. Maybe that'll keep his whole body together.
Jesus, man. It would be great if Soto just came in on the Mets with a massive beard this year. All right. Little too much baseball there. We're going to do a little bit more of something we're less familiar with, and that is compliment NHL hockey in the excellent Four Nations tournament that capped off with an awesome overtime thriller. It was unfortunately not a victory for USA, but an excellent game overall. You talked this up last week, and I don't think I gave you enough credit of explaining how exciting and how entertaining it was. I did watch the game. I was a lot more into it. It was kind of hard to look away. And it's just a round of applause for everything here. I mean, I don't really want to break down X's and O's, but I was very entertained and it delivered. Right?
Oh, I think it definitely delivered. I mean, one, we're talking about on the podcast. Two, it got the two of us that are not really hockey fans to watch a full hockey game. And this was an exhibition. That's what I kept when I was talking to people. I can't believe that this is not real. Like, this is not part of the Olympics. This is not part of something else. This is like what they came up with in place of their All-Star game because they were not pleased with how it went. And you have guys playing for absolute real here. Everybody cared about it. The crowd was not treating it like this was a fake game. There was a decent amount of Canadians in there. I wanted to see how the anthem went. They had both anthems going. The crowd's chanting pretty much throughout, and like you said, the game just also delivered. It wasn't a blowout. I mean, there's no way they could have known how this was going to go, but just no team got up by more than one goal, and it goes to overtime, and of course the overtime is sudden death. So as soon as somebody scores, it's over. So it was it was ton. It was very exciting. Would have liked the USA to win, but
You know what the biggest success of this is, though, is that I can't wait till next year. And don't you feel that way too?
I'm not even so much sure because I don't know if they're going to do it next year. Because next year is the Olympics, so this is almost like a preview of the Olympics. Of like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, okay, yeah, you beat us in the. Congrats on your All-Star game win. But you know what? Now we're playing for real. Now we're playing, for our actual countries. Yeah, let's see what's up.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
I can't
agree.
wait. I can't wait for the next couple of years. The Olympics will be fired up a little bit more. I don't know if I'm as familiar with all of the players as I should, but I just know the game is entertaining. There wasn't a lot of mistakes. It felt like I was on the edge of my seat, that anything could happen, and anything did happen. I mean, USA is up 2-1 in this, and they end up losing in overtime. If you're the NHL and you want to do some NFL script writing, like that's it right there. That's the game. That's what you want. I mean, maybe you want USA to win, but like that's what you want. You want a comeback. You want some goals. You want overtime. You want all the viewers that you've accumulated over the last couple days on the driest and deadest day of NBA sports. It's great success to the NFL. So I can't promise they'll be on the podcast every week, but they have certainly got my attention. Lastly, anything else for the people out there?
Celtics going against the Cavs could be a conference championship preview on Friday. So lock in.
Big game. We'll be back. Make sure you subscribe. Little of column A, little of column B. You can follow Zach on his X account, which is
Wicked Z-Man 24.
We'll be posting the March Madness bracket. I believe we'll do the same prizes and the same sort of setup as we've done in the past year. I don't have the link yet, but it'll be set up. Make sure you subscribe to get all the info on that. And follow Zach on his X account. We'll be back next week with a whole different array of college basketball. All right. Hopefully Michigan State is as successful as they were this past week. I might just have to celebrate this week. We'll be back.
Little column A, little column B.